The camera might be a little bit more steady, but check it out. It's not being controlled by me. See, I ended up getting up one of those little windshield docks for my car. The way the front windshield is slanted, if I try to record it, it basically gets right in my chin. Luckily, there's these little side windows before the actual side window, and it fit perfectly. I know it's at a little bit of an angle, but at least it works. Today, they have me going over to the Sahara office for some HIPAA training. Today, they have me going over to the Sahara office for a HIPAA refresher course. So it looks like I'll be driving a few different places today, going from there to my normal job. And then afterwards tonight, I have practice. So now that they've talked about it for a little bit, how about some of that Wii U stuff? How they're saying that basically most of the developers are thinking it's a lot better, more powerful than the 360 and the PS3. Still too early to tell. I'm not sure if Nintendo's doing their job properly when it comes to actually advertising or trying to get the word out about it. I mean, it's still early, once again. One of the doctors, the radiologist that I work with, came over to me yesterday when I was at lunch and started asking me what I thought about the Wii U. I was like, well, you know, I think it looks pretty cool. The name's pretty horrible, but, you know, I'm excited with what it has to offer. And he said that his roommate was talking about it and he couldn't really get excited just because his roommate thought that basically all you had to do is buy the controller and it just hooked up to the normal Wii, which is definitely not the case since it's a whole new system. Even the fact that that new controller, especially right now, it only works with one controller per system, so you're not going to be able to do a lot of multiplayer stuff with two of those screens. And then his roommate thought that you just hook it up to the Wii, then he's like, well, then it's going to have the normal Wii graphics, like there's nothing going to be special about it, and it's still going to be a step behind. And especially after coming out 5-6 years after the 360, for the most part it will be pretty behind, but Nintendo's always been able to deliver with their games, so it can possibly help them out. The fact of people getting to see Mario or Zelda in high definition is great. And even though they don't plan on having any upscaling for Wii games, since it is backwards compatible, that's a little bit of a letdown because you know that Dolphin emulator online, if you just watch Super Mario Galaxy at 720, like just the way the textures are already in the game, it looks amazing. And if they don't take the opportunity to upscale those the way that they should be able to, that's going to be a little bit sad for us. It's been a while since I drove up Sahara. I gotta go all the way up, but it's better than taking any of the freeways to get over here. My middle school is actually on Sahara too. I went to K.O. Knusen Middle School. I am in school for theater, arts, and all that kind of stuff. I had a good time. I know, in my opinion, I wish that there was like a 10-year reunion that you could have with middle school, because I remember a lot of those memories and those people. They stayed with me a great deal. And you know, I kept in touch with a few of them, but most of them ended up going to LVA, Las Vegas Academy for high school, and I felt like taking a 4-year vacation, so I ended up going to Chaparral, which was just a normal public school out here. I did enjoy the 4 years that I went over there. I definitely would be a different person if I went to LVA for 4 years, but I know going through high school, going through Chaparral, even though I enjoyed it, it seems like, you know, most people don't enjoy high school or school at all these days. But it was pretty easy for me, especially with going to middle school and school before that, just elementary, as a magnet school. It made it so that high school was pretty lax. Like, it seemed, you know, like it was pretty dumbed down or super easy So I just went with the flow. I mean, that way I was able to, when I finished up my work in class, I was able to play my Game Boy Advance, which was pretty awesome. So the 3 years that I spent over at KO was pretty awesome. That was the first time that I actually got to go to school with two of my best friends at the same time. Jimmy, who I've actually known since birth, surprisingly, we're 1 week apart. Hopefully you'll be able to meet him sometime soon. And then Matt. Matt I've known since 4th grade, and we went to 4th grade and 5th grade together. And then once we got to middle school, I went to KO in 6th grade before it turned magnet, but once it actually turned over, he ended up coming over too for 7th grade. And so I was like, awesome. But so Jimmy went there too. And so during all the lunches, me, Matt, and Jimmy all got to hang out together. And it was definitely good times. Those are the years where everybody would end up coming over after school or on the weekends, and we'd all play Mario Kart 64, play Bomberman 64, all those good games. Those were probably the ending of the Sega Channel days. You know, and they would always stay over at the end of the month on Sega Channel, and we would sit there and wait until the new games came out at the beginning of the month. So a little bit after midnight or whatever, they would release 30 new games, and that was just amazing technology at the time. Oh yes, we get to play Road Rash 3 this month. We get to play some Ristar. Sonic 3. All the good games. With Sega Channel, it was actually pretty funny because even though you had those 30 games to play a month, and it would always change, you would get bored of playing Columns over and over, or Shinobi over and over. And I'm pretty sure, it sounds like most of the people I knew that played Sega Channel actually ended up doing this, but you'd get bored and you're like, alright, fine, I guess I'll play Barney Hide and Go Seek. And you would even give like the worst games a shot, you know, like the Barney game, the McDonald game, Mick Kids or whatever it was. But I always gave each game an equal shot, you know, playing like Flashback or can't even think of the name of it, but it was like Darius Kaken, which I never beat that game to this day. And I'm pretty sure Flashback was one of the ones that was pretty hard. A lot of those games definitely got pretty difficult. You know, still driving down Sahara. Definitely a lot of memories down the street. Just passing Maryland Parkway right now. One of the first arcades I got to go to other than the ones that were in the casinos here, which are basically the only ones left other than that Gemini that you saw the other day. There was Mary Kay's arcade that was over in the commercial center, which I'm passing by now. I know I think we always called it like the Chinatown-esque area when we were younger, even though we didn't realize it wasn't the Spring Valley area, Valley View, so it wasn't actually the Chinatown that we have out in Vegas. Whenever we would go to that Mary Kay's arcade, I'm guessing it was still early high school, so 9th, 10th grade, probably 2000, 2001. Sounds about right. Wet n Wild was already gone at that time. It is pretty weird. One of the things that was awesome about being born and raised in Las Vegas, at least since 1985, was it seemed like this town grew up around me. When I was younger, we had so much stuff that was dedicated towards kids, and you know, most of it I got to enjoy, but as I got older, they started taking it away. But back then we had, you know, the Wet n Wild, which I just talked about. We had MGM theme park. It was way better than Circus Circus ever was, and I'll still stand up to that today. We had a bunch of the different like go-karting type places, Scandia, Mount Tasia, so most of those had bumper cars and bumper boats and their own little arcades and mini golf, and one of them had batting cages, and all that kind of stuff was amazing. But then as I got older, like into my preteens and my teens, they just kept closing them down. Scandia closed, Mount Tasia closed, they closed the other Mount Tasia on the other sides of town. Wet n Wild got turned into a parking lot for the Sahara. And I'm right next to the Sahara right now, which is finally closed. they decided that the Sahara wasn't bringing enough money in, or that it was time to go, that it became a relic of Vegas, but one that they didn't care about saving. And I mean, from the outside, the Sahara still looks nice. It has been years since I've been in there. Wet n Wild was still open the last time I was in the Sahara. But now we see how that paid off. Kids in Vegas have nothing to call like a water amusement park. And that was one of the things that like basically everybody would go to in Vegas, you know. They ended up having season passes, so most people would go. I know every year, up until probably like 9th to 10th grade, me, Jimmy, Matt, we all had season passes. Even Mikey would end up going every now and then. The Legend of Eugene, he would go. He's a myth, it seems, as a character. I know we still have video footage of him being around. He's a legend in our own time. I'll probably talk about him at some point. So stay tuned for that. You never know when it'll come, just like Eugene. Wet n Wild was always the best. I can remember even one of the times that I got sunburnt. Only put on suntan lotion once that day, and usually when we go to Wet n Wild, you know, we'd get there really early in the morning, probably 9 or 10 a.m., and then we'd stay until it closed, which sometimes would change. Sometimes it'd be 5 or 6, sometimes 7 or 8, depending on what time of the summer it was. And for whatever reason that day, it was super hot. You know, the sun was bouncing right off the tarmac and all that kind of stuff, the ground, and I was so burnt, you know, that I ended up spending the next few days in bed like I was demolished. I could not move. And, you know, all those aloe vera gels and that kind of stuff, I just had to keep putting it on. And my back bubbled up, you know, like the skin came off and just bubbled up. Like, I guess that's gotta count, you know, as at least a 2nd-degree burn. But the good news about, you know, the sunburns and that kind of stuff, I didn't pick at them or try to get rid of them or anything, so that didn't scar, luckily. Man, that was almost as bad as when I was younger. I think the closest thing to that kind of pain, I was in elementary school. It was before 2nd grade when I lived in Ellison Stewart, or the cross streets. And I walked over to one of my friend's house that was just down the street, and I walked without shoes. There's a possibility it was sandals, but I might have just actually walked barefoot. I can't remember now. And this might be one of the reasons that I hate sandals with a passion, and I never wear them. But I walked over to my friend's house, and I was just chilling with my feet on the dirt, and then I just feel this pain start radiating up my legs. And it took me a minute or two to notice it, and once I did, I was really confused. Like, what's going on? What is this random pain? And I looked down at my feet, and each foot is planted in a fire ant hill. That was one of the things that we used to have in Vegas. I haven't seen them too much since, but we had fire ants. And most people still know, yeah, we have normal ants and things like that, and they're very small. But the fire ants are the bright red ones that are probably about 8 times larger than a normal ant. And my dumbass had to step on 2 different hills, one on each foot, which was kind of crazy that you could even make it out that awesome. Basically like, hey, I'm just gonna plant one on each foot. And then from there, screaming all the way home, you know, that pain just shooting up from each individual ant bite. Who could have counted how many I had, because my feet were just basically drenched in the fire ants, trying to protect their home that I just destroyed the front door to. And so from there, I know I spent a few days in the bathtub just soaking in from all the pain. Good times. So if you live in Vegas, or if you've ever visited Vegas, Do you guys have any memories that just pop up from Sahara? The street? The casino? Whichever you prefer. As you heard, it got a good amount of memories right out of me. Got me thinking about Wet and Wild, got me thinking about Mary Kay's Arcade, Palace Station just passing. So if you can think of anything, feel free. Add to the comments. Give some video responses.